Welcome back. We're back for Primetime Seniors, and our guest right now is Justin Epstein, who is the senior minister at the Unity Church of Hilton Head Island. And Justin has a list of credentials here. He writes a column for Bluffton Today, which is practical spirituality. And he also has a book coming out, I understand, in the fall called Super You, The 7 Steps to Profound Peace and Personal Power. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you.
Boy, well, we're tying this all into our independence and wellness for senior living.
Yes.
And obviously, spirituality plays a very big role, I believe, in staying well and centered. Yes. And how do you help some of your congregation and people you know follow this wonderful path?
Well, I share a lot of different tools and ideas to help people get centered. Mm-hmm. One is just learning how to quiet your mind a little bit. The scriptures say, "Be still and know that I am God." And it's amazing what's inside of us. If we'll just quiet the mind a little bit, we discover that there truly is a profound peace and an inner joy and a sense of well-being if we can learn to focus our thoughts and quiet the mind. And you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't meditate, I can't do it, my mind wanders," and all that. It happens to everybody. It's just a skill, it's a technique.
Well, and you're also a licensed yoga instructor. So yes. I think that is an important part of, I've taken a couple yoga classes. I really need to take a lot more because sometimes we get so busy and crazy. You're right, there's
Yes.
very little time to sort of focus and stay
Yes.
centered and clear the mind. But yoga,
True.
I think, is a wonderful tool
Yes.
to help people
Yes.
get on that track.
Yeah, yoga. Mm-hmm. Well, they say yoga's been around for thousands of years, the postures, and it helps get rid of toxins from the body. Originally, the postures were created to help people learn to meditate, to get still and quiet. When you're healthy physically, then you're able to quiet your mind. It's all connected. If your body's healthy, your mind's going to be calmer, more peaceful, and they work together. And so yoga postures get you in great shape, and they help you to feel better and be well, but even more importantly, you're able to sit still and get quiet and discover that inner peace that's always there.
Well, I think what's important too is flexibility, because I know as we get older, and I know yoga, there's different levels and whatnot, but I know there's certainly a level for everyone.
Yes.
But I think it's very important as we age to stay flexible with our joints, and so we can still perform some of the tasks that we need to do as we get older. So do you do these classes for an array of ages?
Well, I primarily I teach people how to meditate. And in our Unity services, we always have a time for people to get quiet, focus the mind, experience the inner silence. Because to me, that's what changes your life. So I don't really do a whole lot with the yoga postures myself. I used to teach them quite a bit, but there's plenty of yoga instructors around. I like to get people into that inner joy. That inner peace, and to be around people who are tapping into that inner wellness. Sometimes you hear people say, "Well, I can do it on my own. I like nature, I like reading a book," and that's very good. When you're around people of like mind, there's a sharing of an intangible something that happens. You pick up on people's happiness, joy.
What about the folks who maybe are more isolated?
Yes.
We recognize that spiritual wellness is a real important component of your overall wellness. What about the folks who are maybe more isolated? They can't get to church. They're not feeling that connection. What can they do? What are some of their options? Maybe they're recuperating from an illness or recovering from an injury. Maybe they're depressed. They just don't have the energy to go out.
Right.
What are some options for them?
Well, if they're in a group situation, like in an independent living, like Belfair here. Well, the ladies and men who were here actually put together a Saturday evening service where they would, I did that for many months, came here and did a little service. One thing they could do is invite people to come and speak. The other is to form like a little study group. Pick a spiritually uplifting book. You know, there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
And have a little group where they can pray together, read, share a few ideas, discuss it. Just an hour a week or something like that, you know. And those are some things. Establish the habit of learning how to get still and quiet your own mind. I mean, from the spiritual dimension, none of us is ever alone, you know.
Right.
And a lot of people struggle with loneliness, and there's always that presence that's with us. You know, lo, I'm with you always. It's always with us. And if we cultivate an awareness of that and really feel the peace and joy that's present, we never feel really lonely.
That's very true, like we were saying with the isolation. I guess if your faith, if you're, even with reading the books or just practicing it, and I know we're supposed to be still every day and maybe read some passages from the Bible, or like you say, you have 7 steps to profile. What would a couple of the steps be?
Well, one of the steps would be to learn how to accept your human self. We have the spiritual dimension within us, but we also have emotions that we label negative. You know, we have habit patterns that we wish we didn't have. Well, that's part of the humanness, you know, and to let that be okay, to realize that I'm more than my emotions, I'm more than my habit patterns. I'm the one who's aware of those. And to be able to be with the emotions that surface without labeling myself as bad, having them. Learning to accept myself, to feel good about myself as a human being. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I think that's important to realize. We're not human beings seeking a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And so to know that, then I can embrace my humanness. And that's one of the steps. Another step I've mentioned is getting still and quiet, meditation, prayer, deep prayer. There's a Sanskrit term for prayer, which is palal, which is to behold oneself as wondrously made. That prayer in its deepest sense isn't trying to convince God to do something for us. It's to get still and quiet and to experience the wonder of our own being, which is connected with this infinite source. You know, so meditation is another thing. Another is to what I call living in the super zone, which is to think about God through the day. There was a man named Frank Laubach, who was a missionary in the Philippines, and his family was in the U.S. He found himself alone on a hill in the Philippines ministering to these people. He decided he was going to do an experiment and every minute have some thought about God or either pray for another person. Just every minute to bring his attention to God. He said there were times where he just felt heaven right here. He felt joy, he felt peace, he felt the presence. And we can do that wherever we are, whatever we're doing.
And that's such great advice. And I think whether people are isolated, like you mentioned, Debbie, or in a residence home, young or old, I think it's very important to center like that with finding our peace and meditation and focusing.
And helps us to become accepting of others, too.
Yes, it does.
Exactly.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for
thank
joining
you
us. We certainly
having me.
appreciate it, and some great advice
My
for
pleasure.
everyone. And we'll be back right after this.